Hi, hello, welcome back. I was supposed to have a very early meeting today, but it was cancelled, so I decided to hang out with you guys since I have like a few extra minutes on my time. And I decided that today is going to be the day that we're going to start a new series. This series came up in a conversation with one of you in my comment section under a video from Pat McGrath from like a few weeks ago. I can't remember exactly how the inspiration came about, but I had this like brilliant idea that I think I'm just going to call the series Vintage Pat, which sounds really silly because nothing about Pat McGrath's makeup is really vintage at this point in time. But if you consider, releases from 2018 or even prior to 2018, a lot of these palettes, like a lot of these like older, especially limited edition palettes that have long been forgotten, a lot of people don't even know of their existence. We don't really talk about them. I still use them on my channel in my pet pairing series, but I figured it might be fun for those of you who have these palettes to do a series that is sort of centered around these palettes so that we can all bust them out and enjoy them again. I'm not going to have a specific schedule for this series, so the videos are just going to come about as my inspiration strikes, but I hope that this sounds fun to you, and I'm going to do this chatty get ready with me style. So as you can see, I haven't really done anything for the rest of my makeup, so we're just going to be chatting as usual. It's just going to be a chatty get ready with me, but with a flavor of vintage Pat sprinkled onto it, which I hope is something that you're going to enjoy. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this series. Are there specific palettes that you would like me to feature in this series? Without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it, and I'm going to start off with my eyeshadow primer, as usual, my Inglot eyeshadow keeper. And I really wonder how many of you are actually going to own the palettes that I'm going to show, because I think some of you are more newcomers to the Pat McGrath Labs brand, while others have even been fans of the brand before I came on board, because Pat released her brand in 2015 and I only started purchasing in 2018. So even I don't have some of the like oldest releases. I do have one of her older kits because I purchased it secondhand a couple of years ago, but even I didn't really witness the first days of the brand. I did want to share with you the lip balm that I'm wearing today, because I usually prepare, prep my lips before I even turn on the camera, and the last couple of months I've been going through a couple of creamy lipsticks that I have from Suku, from Pat McGrath Labs. I've busted out also Epanui from Lisa Eldridge, because it's in the category of products that I usually apply on my lips prior to my lipstick, just so I can have extra hydration on my lips, especially when I'm going to wear somewhat more matte lipsticks. Now, today I'm actually wearing something new that I haven't shown you yet, and I haven't worn yet. I've had this for possibly over a month at this point, but I had made it a point that I'm going to finish a couple of these other products before I open this one. And today is finally the day that I decided to throw it on and treat myself, and gosh, what a treat it is, because I really like it. So this is the lip balm from Prada in the shade Maple. Isn't that just an absolutely beautiful color? It reminds me a little bit, I think, of the shade of Painterly from Lisa Eldridge, but it doesn't have as much shine and it's more brown. Painterly from Lisa Eldridge I think has a bit more like a mauve purple tone to it, whereas this is more like a light brown, and I really like it. It feels absolutely wonderful on the lips. I really like these type of products, but I don't wear these type of products as lipsticks throughout the course of the day. Maybe if I'm traveling or if I'm doing something low-key, I will wear something like this for the whole day, but more often than not, I end up not using these kind of products if I use them as regular day-to-day lipsticks. But I have been really enjoying wearing them as somewhat more of like a lip care product. But anywho, for my foundation I'm going to take the Prada Reveal foundation in the shade LN5. Speaking of products that I have finished and once again I didn't get around to show you, I'm so embarrassed. I haven't gotten around to filming a Roundup and Empties video once again in a couple of months, and I've talked about this before, but I really struggle. Like chatty get ready with me type videos are usually not a problem because I can film them in the mornings before I go to work. Chatty videos though, where I have to show products like monthly Roundup and Empties or some sort of a ranking or any type of video which is not just me applying makeup, requires me to do it in the weekend, because that's literally the only time that I have enough time to do my makeup and sit down for a video like that. And often enough we have plans for the weekend, we're not here in the weekend, I have a lot of other responsibilities in the house around the weekend, so I don't get around to filming these types of videos, and then time gets away from me. And especially with these monthly Roundup and Empties videos, I've been feeling really frustrated that I can't get around to filming them on a monthly basis. And by the looks of it, I'm not going to be able to do this anytime soon either, like possibly towards the end of May. So we are going to be doing a roundup and empties videos for February, March, April and May, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't like that. I'm very compulsive about if I've decided to do something every month, I should do it every month, or at least not skip more than a month. Anyway, you don't need to deal with the compulsive needs of my brain. I'm going to take the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder in the shade Dim Light to set the foundation and also to slightly deepen the tone because it is a little bit too light for me. And while we're at it, I'm going to take the Evil Eye palette to apply my bronzer and highlighter from. And for my blush, I'm going to show you something that I got as a present from one of you who was decluttering this shade because you didn't feel like it suited you, but you felt like it would suit me really well. So I wanted to show you on camera how this blush looks like as well. But for starters, I'm just going to take the bronzer shade from the Hourglass Evil Eye palette. By the way, I took this palette with me when I traveled to Sofia for this past holiday and I absolutely loved it. The textures in here are truly sublime, like they just melt into the skin, they always look really flawless, they wear really well, absolutely beautiful. And I have to say the palette as a whole works really well for me too because there are a variety of different tones of blushes. There is a highlighter that I really enjoy. There's even a finishing powder. Truth be told, I am still panning the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder, which I take with me now when I travel because I just have a little bit left on the edges of the pan. I think the only thing I would mention as a negative for this palette when it comes to traveling with it is that in the end of the day, the packaging is quite luxurious, so it is quite heavy. Like it was the heaviest item that I took with me traveling. Because when it comes to eyeshadow, I just took these two guys with me, Nude Allure and Bronze Bliss, the original two quins that Pat McGrath released in 2022. And if I'm being entirely honest, I could have just taken Bronze Bliss with me. Bronze Bliss is my go-to travel palette. I never get tired of it. I absolutely love each and every eyeshadow in there. I absolutely love that palette. So I travel a lot with it. But let me tell you about this blush. So this is the Ambient Lighting Blush in the shade At Night. And as you can see, At Night is really a Mariam color through and through. It's a beautiful terracotta shade. I do have to be careful though because it is the kind of shade that I can easily overdo if I apply too much, but it is a really beautiful shade. It very much reminds me of something like Nude Nocturne from YSL. I'm very grateful to V for sending me this little care package featuring this blush. She sent me a bunch of things actually, which some of them I kept, some of them I gave away to family and friends if I didn't think they would suit me, but this specific blush was meant for me and I think it really suits me and I'm really happy with it. Thank you so very much, I really appreciate it. And now I'm going to go back into the Evil Eye palette and I'm going to mix actually a little bit of the finishing powder with the highlight shade. I absolutely love the highlighter that is present in this specific palette. It is the absolute most perfect rose gold. I love how much like glow it has and how beautifully it sits on the skin. Just lovely. Anyway, going back to not being able to film those monthly roundup and empties. Again, it is unlikely that I'm going to film that video coming weekend as well because we're going to be hosting a Eurovision final barbecue. For those of you who live in Europe, this week is going to be exciting if you're following Eurovision, of course, because the first semi-final in fact is going to be this evening, the second one on Thursday, and then on Saturday is the grand final. And we usually get together with friends, we have a lot of fun. And if you know your Eurovision, you know that there's a lot to comment about everything that goes on stage. I'm going to take the airbrush setting spray from Hourglass because I panned my Fix Plus finally. So now I can fully focus on the Charlotte Tilbury spray, which I really like because I think it outperforms the MAC Fix Plus spray in terms of how long it keeps my makeup fresh and not slipping around. And you know what I just realized? I completely forgot to put concealer. I completely forgot to do my brows. Apparently I'm very distracted. Apologies. You know what? Not a problem. We're just going to pop a little bit of concealer and I'm going to do my brows. No one's even going to notice. I'm going to take the Dior Skin Correct in the shade 1N and I'm going to apply that a little bit more carefully now since I have to work around the rest of my makeup. So I'm just going to pop that here on the back of my hand and I'm going to use a light fluffy brush to work that into the skin very carefully and very gently. Right here. And I don't powder underneath my eyes anyway, so it doesn't really matter all that much that I flipped the order. But you know, I can be such a silly goose sometimes. I wouldn't even bother applying the concealer if it weren't for the fact that I have some like blue veins, especially around my eyes, so you can tell if I'm not really wearing a concealer. It's not the end of the world and I don't really care all that much, but my makeup does look a little bit more unfinished if I don't have concealer. So hopefully that sort of did the trick. I'm going to use whatever is left on the sponge to set that as well. Taking the Too Faced Laminating Brow Wax. Are any of you going to be following Eurovision? Do you know anything about the songs? I'll be honest with you, I really enjoy going into Eurovision completely blind. As in, I don't really watch anything prior to the semifinals. I go in completely blind. Some people like to come prepared. They start listening to the songs already months in advance. They have favorites already months in advance. And I really like to be surprised because I want to see the performance on stage. I just like the complete surprise of what's to come, and I can't wait for this evening and the first semi-final. I know that the Netherlands is participating, even though there was some talk about, you know, not participating as a sign of protest after what happened last year with Joost, who was unjustly, in our opinion, disqualified from the competition. But we are participating again. I'm not actually entirely sure that Bulgaria is participating. I haven't really heard anything. They didn't participate, I think, last year, unfortunately. They don't always participate, so not all countries always participate. It has a lot to do with whether they can gather the money to support an act for Eurovision, because it is definitely not cheap. And I absolutely cannot get over how wonderful this balm feels on the lips. Let's get started on the eye look. The first vintage palette that I'm going to dip into, and obviously quite vintage because it's gathered some dust, which I have to clean off because apparently I haven't used this palette in a while, is going to be... So I'm going to use 2 6 pans which were released for the Holiday 2018, and the 2 eyeshadows that I'm going to take from this specific palette are going to be the 2 mattes. So this caramel matte over here and this deeper brown. So I'm just going to use those to carve out the crease and intensify my outer corner a little bit. Do you guys remember these palettes? Do any of you have them? I'm very curious to hear. Do you still use them? I don't use them as heavily as I used to in the beginning or even a few years ago. I think the frequency with which I go into these palettes has decreased quite significantly, but they hold a lot of nostalgic and emotional value for me, so I can't imagine a day when I part with these. Even if I stop using them entirely, I think I will still keep them around, because I've told the story of this several times, but maybe you're new to my channel and you haven't heard it before. I bought this trio, like the set of 3 palettes, in the first week after I gave birth to my son, so in my first week postpartum. For those of you who have been moms and you remember being new moms, the first week postpartum can be quite the time for a woman. It is really quite intense. It was, at the very least for me, it felt quite intense. I was really unprepared for it emotionally, and it was quite the train wreck. Originally I was going to wait a little bit and see whether I can get these palettes on sale with like a good discount code for Black Friday or like a post-holiday sale. Which I'm glad I didn't, because I think they did sell out before that point. I ended up purchasing them in my first week postpartum, so that was shortly after they were released, really. So I'm not even sure that... I think maybe I was able to use the 10% off code. I was hoping for a larger discount, but in the end I think even 10% off was a really good deal, because I bought the 3 palettes together, so there was already some money knocked off because I purchased them as a bundle. But I purchased them in my first week, like I said, postpartum, and it just gave me this wonderful feeling and something to look forward to. And when the palettes arrived, I didn't even touch them for a couple of weeks, because as a new mom I didn't really have time to do anything makeup wise. It was only after a month that I was able to start using them, and I clearly remember the first time I used them. I went out for brunch with my friends, I wore the next palette that we're going to use in a little bit, and I felt like $1,000,000. Okay, going in with the deeper shade now. So that's going to be the dark brown, and I'm just going to use that on a smaller pencil type brush, and I'm just going to concentrate the color here in the outer portion of the eye, sort of as a faux wing, more or less. But yeah, these palettes hold really strong emotional value for me. I associate them with a, you know, giving me a really good feeling at a time when I didn't really feel very good about myself. I was very frustrated with my body for failing me on all sorts of fronts. So these palettes really did something for my mental well-being at the time. And to be honest with you, I still think it's amazing how well they perform. These are already, how many years old? I said I bought them in 2018, okay? It was the end of 2018. So they're going on their like 7th or 8th year at this point, and I think it is impressive how beautifully they apply and how beautifully they blend. Taking a little bit of the NYX glitter glue before we go into the next shade. This next shade also has a fun story to it because it comes from the Dark Star 6-pan. Just applying a little bit here on my lids and the inner corner of my eyes. So this 6-pan is my favorite out of the 3 in this collection because I think it is the most unique one and it contains some of the most unique shades in Pat's collection to this date. I really love this black shade here because it's a very creamy, really like beautiful texture of a black shade. It has the contrast of the cooler tones here, so this duochromy blue purple with the gray. To this day, we don't really have another gray matte shade in Pat's collection, which is a shame, and this one is an absolutely fabulous gray. I really love this shade. And because I was so concentrated on like the cooler shades, I didn't really pay much attention to the rest of the shades, especially the gold. I'm just going to take Enraptured on my lids because that's the shade I'm going to use today. It is just such a beautiful honey gold. But I remember feeling inspired to try using this shade a little bit more after I saw Pat McGrath repost a video of Millie Bobby Brown wearing this eyeshadow for an event on the red carpet. And it looked so beautiful on Millie that I thought, why am I not wearing Enraptured? And then I put it on for the first time and I remember thinking, what a gorgeous, you know, classy gold. Why am I not wearing this more often? For people who have an issue with gold standard, which I can imagine, it's extremely yellow, it's quite bright, it could look quite stark and unflattering on a lot of people. This is, I think, the kind of gold, something like Enraptured, that I think would flatter a lot of people because it has a bit of like a muted neutral tone to it. It has that gorgeous like honey undertone. Lovely, lovely gold shade. So I'm going to blend a little bit around Enraptured. I'll go back into this palette and just pop a little bit of this highlighter type shade, like this champagne here in the inner corners of my eyes. I am going to also layer a little bit of sparkle, also from a palette that we could at this point call Vintage. But in fact, before I do that, I'm just going to take a little bit of this shade here, the caramel brown, and I'm going to run that on my lower lashes. Very, very gently, nothing crazy. And here she is, another goldie but a goodie. This is the iconic Illumination Blitz Astral Quad from the holiday collection the year after that, 2019, when Mother graced us the one and only time with a holiday collection of only Blitz Astral Quads. Gosh, how I wish she would repeat that. Now I'm going to use one of my absolute favorite Blitz Astral shades in her collection, and that's this shade here. This is the shade Astral Gold Allure, which in my opinion is one of the most beautiful Astrals in Pat's collection. Obviously I'm going to pop that over top of Enraptured for a little bit of extra sparkle. I love the undertone of this eyeshadow because it is not a straight up gold. It's also not cool toned and silver as, for example, Astral Solstice from Divine Rose 1 is, and I love the little bit of warmth but not too warm. Like, it's a beautiful neutral champagne. And I really love this eyeshadow so very much. So I'm going to pop a generous amount of that here in the center of my lid over top of Enraptured. So I decided to put the Burnt Umber mascara from Lisa Eldridge to complete the look because I thought it might be really fun to use a brown mascara with this like brown gold look. Love it. If this mascara had just 20% more volume, I think it would have been the absolute perfect mascara. Kept it also very monochromatic with the lips, and I'm wearing Eliza Ginger, one of the Gucci neutrals. Love this lipstick, love this formula, love these Gucci Neutrals lipsticks. I wear them all the time. I hope that you enjoyed this video and this look. Was it a groundbreaking look? No, it was not. The idea is just to revisit really old Pat McGrath Labs favorites. So you're going to be hopefully seeing a lot of these palettes coming back around in videos. Essentially, it's like a Pat pairing video, but more centered on the older releases from Pat, and especially the older limited edition releases that are not that easy to get a hold of. People don't show on their channels anymore, and perhaps you still have them in your collection and you're looking for some inspiration and some motivation to bust them out again. Let me know what you thought about this look, what do you think about this series. To those of you who are going to be following Eurovision, have fun this evening. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see each other again very soon. Bye!